Morning. This is going to be a short one because I have to go get my teeth cleaned in a little bit. And I know it's been a minute, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about a couple clips that I'm going to put in the pinned comment. And one is by mathematician Stephen Wolfram. And Stephen Wolfram, uh, very interested in complexity and cellular automata, I'm not sure how you say it, number theory. And he has this idea of the Reuliad and branchial space, which feels a little bit like a mathy version of the Akashic and a container for all that ever is or was computationally. And in that clip, he's talking about, and it's pretty short. I mean, most of these, I think both of these are under 10 minutes each. He talks about the kind of observer you are shaping what you can see or what you can perceive. I guess not just see, but perceive. And this is really, I mean, it's not novel, but it just hit me a certain way, encountering it. Michael Levin's talked about that. Like, we're really good at perceiving things that are a slice of the middle of the information, sensory or perceptual information that we receive. But things that are much smaller or much bigger, we're not so good at figuring out. And I invite people to sit with that a little bit. And in the clip, Wolfram really is talking about more scale, like Levin, right? If we were very, very small, we could perceive certain things. Or if we were very, very big, like a planet, we could perceive other things. And our point of reference would be different. But I'm offering the idea of like the curious observer. Like the observer you are determines what you perceive, right? What the story is, which is what I've been talking about for a while. And so, and in my, as I say, my Animus live action role play musical, God Loves Variety, and we're here doing the 3D space-time bit. And so I don't think we shouldn't foreground judgment on which is the right kind of observer to be and which is the wrong kind of observer to be. There are some people who want to try on lots of different lenses as observers and evolve over time and see all the things out of a lot of different views. And then there are some people who are really comfortable being in one particular view consistently. And I think it takes all the kinds. But I think it's worthwhile to consider how you are in this world for yourself and for the people that you love, for your community and loved ones and family. And is the observer that you are conducive to having satisfaction in your lived experience? Maybe not in every single daily life, but in the grander trajectory. And I say this as someone who for a while was inhabiting a space that was not that. And then I got some new tools and I realized that I could shift and that it was okay to shift. And it's actually kind of exciting sometimes. It's not always easy, but it can be exciting to shift. And so, if you're out there in the world and you're feeling like it's not working for you to the extent that you'd like I just offer like the kind of observer you are changes what you can see. So maybe try out, have a video about improvisation. Like you don't have to commit to being a new kind of observer. Just try it out. Like look at a meta level out of some other story lens as a different kind of observer at a different scale, at a different time scale, a different size scale, from a different set of assumptions. So that was a Wolfram clip. And then the other one was about a guy working in complexity and swarm intelligence. I'm trying to remember his name. It'll be on there. But he was in a group discussion with Andres Gomez Emelson, and I've been very intrigued by this Qualia Research Institute lately. And Andres's channel is very interesting. Like the focus is a lot on the nature of consciousness as topology. His background is in computational psychology, and it centers exotic states of consciousness. So part of that is jhana meditation, which I'm not exactly sure is JHANA, jhana meditation. And the other is the 5-MeO DMT trips, which I think is the God particle one. And, while I have a lot of questions about that as practice is kind of like Michael Levin. I have lots of questions. I'm not sure about all of it, but the information that they're gathering adds to my lens as an observer. It's quite interesting. And so part of the reason I haven't been posting as much lately is I've really been spending the last month or two kind of stepping into a space of some sort of high level abstract math that involves topology and projective geometry and this thing called category theory. And I was telling a friend recently, it feels like sometimes you have those dreams where you're in your house and it's not really your house, but in the dream it's your house, and like you go up into a closet or something, and then there's another door, and then it opens into like a whole other room that you never knew was there. And I feel a little bit like that with category theory, that it's essentially about very simplified approaches to systems, which could be like categories, could be like holons or cells, and how they relate to one another, and then the context that builds. And so it's very contextual, and there's connections to phenomenology, which again, I keep going back from in my own personal live action role play, improvisational encounter. Lynn and I having barbecue with Natalie Smolensky at the Texas blockchain, trying to explain to her about pay for success finance, but then later realizing her background was not in things you might expect of the first chair of the Texas Blockchain Council, like engineering or venture capital or lawyer or public policy. She was a phenomenologist, right? And so, I eventually I'm going to get back to talking about that Google Project Genie, but I think a lot of this is about phenomenology. It's like, how are you doing you? How are you doing the world? How is the world doing you? And taking, trying, like, I don't know, just getting better at exercising the controls. What I've found is projecting less on other people, or presuming that because I don't really think we understand most other agents. We can guess. Often those guesses are not correct. But getting to know yourself, getting to know your story, and then getting to know, like, trying on other languages. And that's part of what this second clip is the idea of unthinkable thoughts, and the possibility that there are constraints in thinking big thoughts or complicated thoughts, because to think big complicated thoughts makes life too complicated, and thermodynamically there's not an upside for that. And that for me kind of overlaps with the active inference and free energy principle, Carl Friston, is that, and I get frustrated because I like to think big, complicated thoughts. And they're like, well, maybe there's an evolutionary imperative that most people don't think big, complicated thoughts and push the envelope. But then maybe you do need to push the envelope sometimes. And like, what's that balance? What's that dance? And so yeah, this idea of thinking unthinkable thoughts, like what are the tools we use to think with? And again, that's going back to, for me, Robert Anton Wilson's reality tunnels, and John Lilly's, like, how do you program your biocomputer, and how do you manage your boundaries? Like, what is your boundary? Like, what information do you let in, and what information do you not let in? And then it goes to, what's his name? Jeremy Pitts, the UCL professor, who is always talking about Bitcoin and knowledge management and the Athenian superorganism and getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And I always feel like I'm the wrong person with the information that can never get through. But we're all these different characters. We all have our different ways of doing it. And really all we can control is how we are with it. And I think for whatever reason, the current version of social media tends to encourage people to project on other people, project what you imagine, because it's more comfortable than figuring out where you actually are and what you can do with the equipment you came in with, like both intellectual and physical. Like, yeah, how do you run your spaceship? I do have one other clip. I'll put this one other clip in there. It's a Pyrosoma. My friend Laura directed me to this video. It was a woman talking about these deep sea worms. And the sea worms, the Pyrosoma, are as big as like a gray whale or blue whale. They're quite large, and they're just big tubes. It's like a really big straw, like a long extended torus field, and they're made up of these little individual items called tunicates. And the tunicates can live by themselves. They don't have to be part of a pyrosoma. They can just hang out. But to go somewhere and do something, you have to, if you want to have more agency, you get on the bus, you get on the Pyrosoma bus, and then you can zoom around the deep sea at a much faster rate. And they communicate via light. That, a lot of those little deep sea creatures are bioluminescence, and so they blink lights. And which to me, I feel like we're all like fractals of sorts. We have our light. That's the Quaker, the light within. So we've got our light. Like the way we blink it is more subtle energy. So more people are attuned to subtle energy and auras and things than other people. But back in the Pyrosoma, they're like steering it by blinking their lights. And to me, that's kind of like this a quorum sensing in the biofilm, is that everyone's sort of blinking a certain pattern, and then it comes into these like harmonic resonance, which is one of the things the quality research folks are thinking about, is that how consciousness comes together from all these different sensory inputs on oscillators, and then eventually they reach sort of a consensus about what reality is in that given particular moment. And I think that relates to this radical democracy, participation, voting that Glenn Weil and Audrey Tang are going to be developing with your AI digital twin. But, in this thought experiment, again, what kind of observer are you? Are you the kind of observer who wants to find the bad side of things, or to find the bad guy, or to point out your superiority to that idea and to be scared of it, and then to document that? Because if that's the kind of observer you are, and I'm not judging, I mean, I was that kind of observer for a good bit. It's a certain place you can certainly be. Then you're going to see things a certain way. And maybe you'll be the tunicate that's hanging out, on the rock, like watching the Pyrosoma go by, and that's cool because it takes all kinds. Or maybe you're, maybe you want the affordances of being part of the Pyrosoma, right? And so you're gonna but you can't steer the thing by yourself, like the wisdom of the crowd steering things. So you're gonna hand over, to the overall energetic collective, and because you want to do some stuff, and that's another way of doing it, right? And so these are all just thoughts that I play with because, I like I said, I haven't been doing as many discussions lately, but I have been putting up clips, and these are things that I tend to try to be a thoughtful consumer, right? Sometimes I'll sit with a talk for quite some time, and then I'll go back and I'll try to make a clip edit, and that takes time, like both to screen record it and then to edit it down and upload it. I maybe can do 1 or 2 a day. In between, I'm doing a lot of gardening now. And so I have to sit with this information. It's not quite like being in a stream of like TikTok videos or likes or clicks or short little reels and things like that. It's really sitting with it, and then that shapes the observer I am. I'm not saying I'm a superior observer to other kinds of observers. It's just I'm observing at a different rate than people who are observing at a faster rate, and our experiences are different, and that's okay. So I'm going to just put in the pinned comment. I'll invite you, the Wolfram talk about the kind of observer you are, and then the one about like unthinkable thoughts and language, and then how getting a new language affords you new ways of thinking. And so to me, these concepts that I'm putting into the clips and thinking about, they're my new affordances. They're my new toys to play with. How can you, if you're the kind of observer that likes to acquire new toys and new ways of doing it, again, with the curious lens that you don't have to judge in advance or spend a lot of your energy pointing out the scary thing, and you can step back and figure out some other novel ways of getting through it. There's some cool stuff. And so that's part of learning this new language for me. It feels like the universe pranking me because, I was a pretty good student in most things, but math, not. I cried on the carpet many times over my Algebra 2 textbook, and I just couldn't get it. And so this is a new kind of math without the other stuff, with shapes, simple dots and lines and shapes, and they lead to really amazing places. And so, it's a new affordance, and I'm learning to work with that, and it's helping me add to the kind of lenses I have in my toolbox as an observer. And it's a spring project. And so eventually, I know I've let some folks down on my Babel 17, but I do think it's always for a reason. And so, like, again, this is not monetized. And if you would like to finish Babel 17, it's available on archive.org. So you can go there and look it up and read the last section. Or you can wait for me, because things arrive in the time that they're meant to arrive. And often the last installment takes a while. So I'm sitting on it, and I'm composting it a little bit. And eventually I will. We had unseasonably cold and unseasonably warm weather, and I'm getting my bearings on getting my next week. We're supposed to have overcast weather and rain, which is a good time for transplanting. And so maybe after that round of transplanting, I can do a garden walk around and folks can see. But I hope you all are well and enjoying this fine day. And please avail yourself of the clips if you feel like you'd like to know more about language affordances and observation shifts and getting on the deep water Pyrosoma bus. You can always get off. That's the thing about the tunicates. They don't have to stay on the Pyrosoma. They could go and get off at another stop. And to me, that's actually a really beautiful metaphor, like that we can be ourselves fully, and then we can join with others on demand, and then we can disconnect when needed. And to me, that would be the optimal kind of dance to be in. Okay, bye-bye.